Currently, the European Team Championship is underway, in chess obviously, and in round 2, in the match, Czech Republic against England, the Czech player David Navara faced a new player of England, Nikita Vitiugov, who formerly played for Russia. Navara, rated around 2700, slightly below, tried a very trendy line in the Najdorf against Nikita Vitiugov, who is rated slightly above 2700, so they're very close to each other. Vitiugov is 2712, and the game we are going to look at is similar to the Saric-Caruana game, which we have already analyzed, and I will leave the link in the description so you can check the game after this video. So this being said, I want to emphasize that these team events are very tense because winning is always very important. Losing is unpleasant and costs 2 points. And obviously every team wants to win, and the Czech Republic and England are, in my opinion, favorites because Russia is missing, and so they will try to get a good final place. This being said, let's just go to the game. David Navara starts the game with first e4, and Vitiugov responds with c5. A Sicilian, knight to f3, d6, of course d4, the open Sicilian, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and after a6 we have a Najdorf. And as always, I just mentioned that the 6th move is very important in the Najdorf, the 6th move of white, because here he's basically choosing if he is already heading towards a certain direction. Of course, moves like bishop e2 just delay the decision and are more flexible. Moves like g3, f3, or bishop to d3 are less flexible. And what we can see here is a certain trend, and this is just 6th bishop to d3. And I have also covered this in the video analyzing the game. Was Saric against Caruana, where Caruana played a very beautiful game. So black responds g6, sorry. So against this bishop d3 move, there is this trend of setting up with the dragon. So you just play g6, put the bishop on g7, and usually what white does here is playing f3, bishop to g7, bishop e3. So far we are still following the game Saric against Caruana. Knight bd7, a very standard move in the Najdorf, queen to d2, and now b5. And this is exactly the game Saric-Caruana. And Saric here played a4, and Caruana responded with b4, just like Vitiugov did right now in this game. And in the previous, or in the mentioned video where I analyzed this game, I claimed that knight to a2 might be a better option, or at least it's an important alternative, and this is what Navara is doing. So it seems like he's watching this channel. Jokes aside, no, he's certainly not. These strong grandmasters just see new ideas, analyze the position, and then come up with these moves. So it's not surprising that although there are very few games with a4 played, still the grandmasters know that this idea exists. So by the way guys, if you enjoyed this video but haven't subscribed yet, I would be very happy if you do so. It helps my channel to grow and keep me motivated. So now let's continue with the game. So d5 played, and this is the very principled move here. The knight moved to a2, it is less centralized. Time to strike in the center. This is also giving up a pawn. But however, it is important to mention that either way, white gets an unpleasant structure. Because if he takes the d5 pawn first, then knight takes d5, knight takes b4, white is up a pawn. Now knight takes e3 of course. cashing in the pair of bishops. And apart from that, the position of white is a little bit suspicious. Where should the king go? If after queen to c7 white castles kingside, we can see there is this dangerous diagonal. And there are already a lot of pieces there. And also f3 might not be the strongest point here. So white is not very happy about the extra pawn. Still, it's an extra pawn. So the position should be okay. But in the game, knight takes b4 was immediately played. And now Vitiugov responded with d takes e4. And now Navara could have played bishop takes e4, but refrained from doing so, because this gives up the pair of bishop. So f takes e4 played immediately. Bishop to b7, attacking this pawn a second time. Still, white just wants to finish development castles. And also black wants to improve the position and is playing knight to e5. Now rook a to d1 was played, and this wasn't the best move. Because now, after castling, white might have issues on the queen side, and we will see why. So king h1 played, and if I'm not mistaken, we could also see this move in the Sadic game, where the bishop was able to go back to g1. However, it didn't work out well there, and it's not going to work out here well. So now black decided it's time to get the pawn back. Bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4. And one thing which we must consider when looking at this position is this 1, 2, 3 against 1 on the queen side. So it's 3 pawns against 1 pawn. But on the king's side, it's 2 against 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns. So the ideas are pretty clear. White will try to get the pawns through on the queen side, and black might try to attack the king. So bishop to h6 played, knight c4, attacking this queen, but also this pawn, and this bishop is also attacked. So the queen has to move. Queen to e2. White decides to give up the dark squared bishop. Bishop takes h6, knight d to c6, a beautiful intermediate move. Queen to e8, and now queen takes e4. And very typical for this Najdorf defense games, this position is just a mess, in my opinion. This is always in the air, but also the forks here. So, of course, knight to e3 is played. And now white plays knight to d5. White will be down in exchange. But which rook should black take? Well, let's look at the good move first. Knight takes f1. Then, of course, white doesn't want to settle with less material, so he plays knight to c7, attacking the queen. But here comes the resource. Black has f5. Then might follow knight takes e7 check, king h8, and then queen h4. Then maybe, g5, queen takes h6, queen takes e7. And in the end, white gets back the material here. So knight takes e8, and knight to e3. White is up a pawn, but this knight on a8 doesn't look too good, so the position is equal. So let's go back. Instead, knight takes d1 was played, and this is not a good move. Why? After rook takes d1, there are huge threats here, and also f6 isn't the strongest square. So f5 played, like in the last variation, and then comes knight d takes e7. However, queen c4 had fought for an advantage, because queen f7 can be met with queen to h4, and now there are multiple checks on e7 and they are not very pleasant. For example, queen to g7 and then knight c7 first and only then check. And now the exchange is hanging and white won a pawn in the end. So let's go back. Knight d takes e7 was played. Immediately check, king h8, queen h4, bishop g7. And now it gets really messy. Navara plays rook to d6. And now Vitiugov could have maintained the balance here with a move like g5, then queen takes g5, rook f7. Oh, sorry, Navara could have maintained the equal position. So with rook f7 and now h3. And now everything is protected or all the white pieces are protected. However, in the game h6 followed, and here there is a nice move, and this is knight takes g6 check, king h7, and then knight c to e5. So these positions are incredibly complicated, and white is basically fighting for a mate, and black has huge issues. So instead rook takes g6 was played, not knight takes g6. So Navara is handing back the advantage. King h7 played, and now h3. And of course, after rook f7, rook d6, queen to f8 was played, and we can see this piece tends to be a little bit weak. So queen to g3 was played, and then it got taken. And this queen g6 check is just not enough because of king h8, knight e7, and after queen e7, black is up an entire piece. But let's see how white could have avoided this. And the way is just queen to e1 had probably saved white. So now let's go back to this position, and as mentioned, black is up material, but black should calculate precisely, because maybe white can change the position into something drawish. Rook e6, queen g5, trying to exchange queens, accepted, and now it's 3 pawns, bishop, rook by black against white's 5 pawns and rook. And this position is actually pretty good for black. However, after rook g6, rook c8, rook takes g5, it's 2 pawns and a bishop and a rook against 5 pawns and a rook. So bishop takes b2, getting back the just handed over pawn, so it's 2 against 4, but not for very long, because rook takes f5, gets another pawn for white. Now it's 4 pawns against 1 pawn. Black's extra piece doesn't matter that much anymore. Rook takes c2, 3 against 1. And now we have to realize something. These 2 connected passed pawns are very important. And the way to probably save the game is to play g4, then might follow rook c4, rook a5, rook c6, defending the a6 pawn, and the game goes on, king g2, and rook goes away, and the pawns are pushed. And this position is even dangerous for black, because if he just grabs this pawn, then there is this move, and now this looks very ugly. It's a checkmating threat, and it's not visible how black should meet this, so not good. Instead king g7, but still the position is just very drawish, even though it's now only 2 against 1. But there is this idea with rook g6, and the king cannot move to the e7 square because of checks. The king f7 check, and now if it moved here, then check, and The king has to move, then the bishop is taken. Not very pleasant. It's lost for black, obviously. However, the game continued with Navara's rook a5 immediately, rook to c6, and now g4. Now the position is a little bit different. Bishop to c3, and again, white could just check here and then improve the king and push the pawns, and this should be around equal. But black has many ways to fight, and actually it doesn't look good for white. So let's go back. Oh, sorry, this position after h5, this one is obviously good for black. So this is the evaluation. So rook d5 played, rook c4 attacking the a4 pawn, a5, and now the position is probably simply lost, because after rook a4 there's rook d8 check, but the king just goes up and reaches either the rook, or the rook moves to a7, and then this a5 pawn is lost, and now the game is lost after h4 and after these moves, because the two pawns aren't strong enough, and the bishop can be sacrificed for the pawn if they are too advanced at some point. But it's not necessary, because after bishop e5, black sets up a very dangerous threat of rook g3 check. So h5, rook g3 check, king f1, bishop d4, trying to get a mating net here. If the king was here, then this would be already very dangerous. King e2, rook g2, king f1, and now rook g5 attacking this pawn, while this pawn is also attacked. So if h6, which was played in the game by Navara, then rook takes h6 and h7 was played, but this didn't rescue white because of rook f6 check in the end. And here is the point where Navara decided to resign, because after the rooks are exchanged, you can see this square is covered, while this square is a black square. This is very important in the case of the king reaching this square. Even then, it wouldn't be able to white to defend this position. But additionally, this king seems to be also very fast. But it's always nice to know that this square is covered by the own bishop, and this is simple endgame theory. As always, I hope you liked this video. If you did so, feel free to press the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you.